Equinoxe Télévision, Innocent Azé, good evening.
Bonsoir, Julien Beth Besai. Good evening to you as well, Televiewers. Thanks for joining us in this edition of the 8 p.m. bilingual newscast on Equinoxe Television. Newly appointed members of government will be officially installed into their various functions tomorrow, Monday, January 7, 2019. We'll begin with the installation of the new Prime Minister of the Republic of Cameroun. In this edition of the newscast, we equally be telling you how yesterday was honored or was observed a Good Saturday in the two English-speaking regions of Cameroon. Business premises were deserted as well as streets. This as January 5 marked exactly 1 year since Julius Tabe and other Amazonian leaders were extradited from Nigeria and jailed in Yaoundé, Cameroon. And we'll equally be telling you how a preliminary election results of the presidential election results of the Democratic Republic of Congo have so far been delayed. Election officials say they have received less than half the ballot papers. Details and more in this edition of the newscast.
Innocent Azé, good evening once again.
Good evening to you once more, Julian Beth, and once more, good evening to you as well. Teleview stands for staying with us. We begin by telling you, just as we told you in our lead stories, that it was a good Saturday in the two English-speaking regions of Cameroon. Streets were deserted in major towns, including Bamenda, and the business premises were also closed. The population preferred to stay indoors for safety, and the unusual Good Saturday, that was January 5, 2019, according to the observers, was to grant honor to Julius Tabe and other Amazonian leaders who were extradited from Nigeria to Cameroon on the 5th of January 2018, and yesterday clocked exactly a year. The Amazonian leaders were detained in Yaoundé, and 3 vehicles were set ablaze in Bamenda for violating the Ghost Saturday order, and 1 was burnt around Tapmulung and 2 others in Tamucho or Ngomgam, that's in the Bamenda 2 subdivision. Gunshots also prevailed throughout Saturday. And still talking about the socio-political impasse, this time we're taking you to the southwest region, notably Boya, where Mayor Padre Kema of the Boya Council has described Boya as no longer hospitable regarding the prevailing armed conflicts between pro-independence fighters and defense and security forces. He says a lot of valuable things have so far disappeared in the once beautiful town of Boya. Take a listen to him as he was speaking to the Rijato.
We've been having persistent civilian attacks by groups of armed secessionists. And so if the military is out there, it is to bring down or quell down their incursion and persistent attacks. It is no news to all and sundry that even traditional authorities here were kidnapped. They were not kidnapped by military. So going by what you described as the city being militarized, I think the military before the crisis were all in their barracks. If you see them out, then it is to defend the integrity of the nation, defend the national colors, honor a fidelity. That's part of the assignment. And we think that we should dwell more on inviting our brothers and sisters who are hiding in the bushes with weapons, with arms, to desist from this and look for better avenues or pacific avenues in solving and regulating what they term as problems. Boya has been known for its excellence, and that excellent people do excellent things in the city. They pegged the excellence in the domain of academics. They talked about the St. Joseph College Sase. They talked about the first bilingual school, which was moved from Manowobi in 1963 to Moliko. They talked about the excellent culture of the people. They talked about the excellent touristic attractions. Everything that surrounds Boya goes with excellence. And so you cannot talk about hospitality when some people are in the bush with weapons, guns and all sorts of weapons, killing, kidnappings, extorting and all sorts of vices to their own brothers. That is no hospitality. So in the real sense of it, we should go back to what we used to be and encourage our people to maintain values of excellence.
And what can the president's new government, led by Chief Dr. Joseph John Goute, do to resolve the prolonged Anglophone crisis that has been hitting the two English-speaking regions of Cameroon for close to 3 years now? In the following reports, Mimi Mefo portrays what the new Prime Minister has to do in order to ensure peace returns in the two English-speaking regions of the country.
The deepening Anglophone crisis, which is now being referred to as an armed conflict, escalated under the government of Philemon Yang. 3 years on, the northwest and the southwest regions are still to be free from ghost towns, gun battles, targeted killings, kidnappings and arson attacks, despite series of visits to the regions by Philemon Yang and members of his government to call for peace and calm. It is not known whether replacing the former head of government with Chief Dr. John Goute is connected to the crisis, but many are curious to know if the traditional ruler from Ekondo Titi southwest region of the country can succeed to pave the way for the much expected peace talks. To many, it is a dream to imagine that Chief Dr. John Goute, who has served under the same regime as Minister Delegate at the Ministry of External Relations with special responsibility for cooperation with member countries of Commonwealth for over 2 decades, would hasten the holding of an inclusive dialogue for the return to normalcy in the conflict-hit regions. But contrary opinions hold that his mastery of the grievances of the English-speaking population, having represented Cameroon at the UN Human Rights Council and led the country's delegation to the Africa Commission on Human and People's Rights in Banjul, could be a promising portfolio for an expected change.
We are very happy.
The CPDM Central Committee member, who is replacing the longest-serving Prime Minister in Cameroon, had served as Director General at the National School of Administration and Magistracy, ENAM, where he was in charge of training senior public administration, finance and judiciary personnel. If there is a principal challenge ahead for the 65-year-old Chief Dr. John Goute, it is the need for him to provide urgent solutions to the Anglophone crisis.
And 3 lessons could be learned from the partial cabinet shake-up of Friday, November 4th, 2019 or 2018. That should be January 4, 2018. And some ministers had their ranks increased. Others swapped from one ministry to the other, while some big names were simply replaced by newcomers. And for me, Armstrong Sander tells us more.
Just like he did after the 2011 presidential election, Paul Biya decided to go for a partial cabinet shake-up after a long suspense that began from the day he was sworn in on November 2018 for another 7 years mandate. Just few ministerial departments were affected by either a change of portfolio, swap in ministerial departments, or removal from posts of minister. Pierre Ismail Bidumkwad moves to the Ministry of Arts and Culture, while Narcisse Mwele Kombi takes over him as Minister of Sports and Physical Education. Laurent Sech Etundungwa becomes the Minister of Basic Education, while Issa Chiroma Bakari moves from Communication to be Minister of Employment and Vocational Training. Henry Ayebe Ayisi, former Minister of Agriculture, became Minister of State Properties and Land Tenure. Ferdinand Gongo, on his part, became Minister of State but got maintained as Secretary General at the Presidency of the Republic, despite comments linking him to Cameroon's failure to host AFCON 2019. Jacques Famendongo becomes Minister of State, Minister of Higher Education. Among the newcomers are Celestine Ketchakutes, the decorated mayor of Bangante in the West Region, who moves as Minister of Housing and Urban Development, replacing his regional brother, Jean-Claude Mbunchu. René Emmanuel Sadi becomes Minister of Communication after spending 9 months at the Presidency of the Republic. Manauda Malaki takes over public health from Andre Mamafuda. Ibrahim Tabamala takes over the Ministry of Public Contracts, which has been tagged by Equinoxe as most corrupt in 2017, from Abbas Sadou. Gabriel Mbairobe becomes Cameroon's Minister of Agriculture, while another Gabriel Ondondonke replaces Ernest Ngwabubu to be Minister of Industries, Mines and Technological Development. Ashil Basiliken III is appointed Minister of Small and Medium-Sized Enterprises. The G20 got their share of the national cake as Jean de Dieu Momo is appointed Minister Delegate in the Ministry of Justice. The partial cabinet shake-up saw names like Andre Mamafuda, Abbas Sadou, Yusuf Adija Alim, Zachary Perevet and Ernest Mbwabubu packing out of government.
And the social media has been boiling following the appointment of Jean de Dieu Momo from opposition leader and member of the G20 as a minister delegate at the Ministry of Justice. Immaculate Fogwe gathered some reactions on social media and put together this report.
Social media users have not been silent over the appointment of Barrister Jean de Dieu Momo as Minister Delegate at the Ministry of Justice. Majority of some of the reactions captured on Facebook hold that his support for the ruling CPDM party for the past months elevated him to that position. One could see reactions like, Jean de Dieu Momo, Minister Delegate of Justice. Mr. Biya has done it hard. Another social media user says, life has changed. The decree has fallen on my brother. He has been given a post of high esteem. Others see his appointment as a slap on the face of his opponents, while others think his appointment came as a result of the role he played during the October 7th presidential elections. Such users advance comments like, Jean de Dieu Momo, that affair has paid. On social media, chats, reactions and talks on the partial cabinet reshuffle is far from being over.
And all the newly appointed members of government will be officially installed into their functions tomorrow, January 7, 2019, and a special handover of prime ministerial duties to the new Prime Minister, Joseph John Gute, will take place at the Prime Ministry, and it will begin at exactly 9 a.m. And news out of the country, we take you to the Democratic Republic of Congo. Preliminary results of the elections of that country has been delayed. Election officials in the country say the preliminary results have been delayed because they have received less than half of the ballot papers. Courtesy your news.
The Democratic Republic of Congo's preliminary election results will not be announced on Sunday. The country's election commission said it had only received less than half of the ballots so far. It's still not exactly clear when the results will be ready, alarming opposition parties. The Lamuka coalition regrets the fact that the National Electoral Commission has not yet specified any date for the announcement of provisional results regarding the legislative, provincial and presidential elections. The Lamuka coalition warns the National Electoral Commission against any intention of tampering with the results displayed at the polling stations. President Joseph Kabila is stepping down after 17 years and has promised an orderly transfer of power, but there have already been allegations of irregularities.
And there continue to be pressure from world powers and the influential caliphs to respect voters' wish. And they say untrue results of the presidential election of the Democratic Republic of Congo could lead to violence demonstration. And that's the end of this edition of the 8 p.m. bilingual newscast on Equinoxe Television. Thanks so much for watching. But before we leave you, it is worth mentioning that newly appointed members of government will be officially installed into their functions tomorrow, and it will begin with a special installation of the new Prime Minister of the Republic of Cameroun. It is Joseph John Gute. Bonsoir à vous.
Merci Innocène Azé. Je vous souhaite également une très bonne soirée. Vous l'avez dit, les nouveaux promus ou les promus du réaménagement ministériel du 4 janvier dernier prennent fonction demain lundi 7 janvier 2019. Mesdames, Messieurs, c'est la fin de cette édition bilingue du journal. Merci d'avoir été des nôtres.